And what happened 8 months later was that this probation officer decided that she didn't like Martin. She never liked me. She had been flirtatious with him. She had told him at one point that when you tell your wife that you really did molest your daughter, which was a requirement of the program, when you tell her that and when she leaves you, you can call me. She handed him her business card. How do I know that? Because he gave it to me when he got back in the car. And he said, "I don't understand why she gave me her card. I've been a probationer of hers for weeks. I already have her number." But she said, "You can call me when your wife leaves you." 8 months later, she filed a false police report saying that Martin had done things he had not done, could not be proven. And in her recommendation, she asked Judge Merritt to put him back in prison. So we went back to court with Brian Savy. What's interesting, though, to me is that shortly after the violation of probation, when we went back to court, and the Judge Merritt actually said, "I don't see a violation," and he reinstated Martin's probation. We were reassigned a different probation officer. Thank God he was a godly man. He was actually a pastor in his spare time. And Mr. Brown allowed us to finish out the 2.5 years, and then we were able to get off probation. But right after this violation of probation, we had a Facebook page called Warrior Ministry. We still do. I started the Warrior Ministry Facebook page right after Martin went in. And I was very vocal about what we were going through in our story. Now, we didn't know any of this until now, until this point in time. After he was set free, we didn't know any of this about all of Aaron Daly and all the lies and the scheming and the notes switching up. We didn't know any of that. But I actually posted on our Warrior page, breaking news: Hernando County Assistant State Attorney Aaron Corcoran Daly guilty, in capital letters, of juror misconduct, ? I had an attorney friend that said that's how you get out of it. I mean, if you don't put the question mark, then that's considered slander. So there's a question mark there. And I begin to explain some of the things that she did about the notes and things. Now, what's interesting, or I hope you find it interesting, I know I certainly did, is that after I posted that, somebody in the Daly household, keep in mind that Aaron Daly was married to Bill, still is, as far as I know, and they have no children together. So it's just the two of them. But somebody signed on to Bill Daly's Facebook page and began to slander Martin on every single page going back 4 years. All of our Warrior Ministry posts about the things that were happening and Martin being set free and all of these things. Somebody posted, "Martin Peterson is a convicted child molester." Now, they posted that after numerous posts, and it immediately got some response because these were people that I didn't know well, but they had been following our story for 4 years. These are some of the things that they said about Bill Daly's comments. He said, "I wonder if you realize that's not how this works. You still got to suffer the consequences of your irrational actions and shady as all get out illegal maneuvering." Another person said, "You're not above the law. As we fight for justice, your numerous lies will be brought to light." And then I said, "Writing a retraction and then stating even more lies is not a retraction," because as you'll see, he retracted, or she. And that's when someone else said, "All I can say is I'm glad she was caught. Time will tell what happens to her. It better not be a slap on the wrist. This is the kind of stuff that goes on that I hate seeing. I will also be following up on this. Pure evil corruption. Many of them you can see are above the law. Do your homework, folks. Keep up on things that matter. Don't let them get away with this." Someone else said, "Wow, this does not surprise me. Why? Just why?" And I said, "Why? Because to them, winning is more important than the truth. I pray that ends soon as more innocent people speak out." Someone else said, "It makes me sick to see these cases. They know people have been wrongly convicted, but will not admit mistakes were made, stealing years of their lives and letting the true culprit is out, probably hurting many more." Someone else said, "Has she been disbarred yet? How long will she go to jail for? Now give her real justice. Today's judicial system is so dirty. You're a crook. You will get your day in court." And lastly, "She should be disbarred and sent to jail. If that was you or I, we would already be in jail. No political favors from the judges either. Throw away the key. No one is above the law. This is why people hate attorneys." And is she related to Richard Corcoran, Speaker of the House? Now, I left that in because I want to clarify. I emailed Mr. Corcoran and sent him some of the things that we knew then about Aaron Daly. And he responded. He said, "My record against government corruption is well documented. I suggest you call the Florida bar and ask for a referral for an attorney to represent you. To the extent you wrote me, given that the prosecutor's name is the same as his, rest assured we are of no relation and I do not know her. All my best, Richard." So I wanted to set the record straight. Not related to Richard Corcoran. After reading some of these things and screenshotting all of the comments by Bill Daly, I began to go back, and after each one, I simply put, "Thanks for the lawsuit." No surprise there that all of a sudden the comments began to be deleted, delete, 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 delete. Gone, gone, gone. And I assured him, "It's too late. I've already documented, obviously, everything that you said." Now, you would think, after all that and getting caught on Facebook, that that would be the end of the shenanigans of Aaron Corcoran Daly. Oh, no. So before he went to work for this one particular company, I had met with the boss. It was a husband and wife team. And I told the boss, the female boss, I said, "Listen," I said, "I need you to understand what we're going through because I hope that you're not dragged into this, but I don't put anything past the state of Florida." So I told her all of these things that had gone on. As she listened, I could tell that she was not only sympathetic, but she was horrified and a little sad over all that we had been through. But I told her, "I want you to know these things because, number one, I think it's important that nothing be held back from an employer. I would hate for you to find out later and say, 'Well, you should have told me this. I might not have hired you.'" And I said, "But secondly, and most importantly, Martin Peterson will be the best over-the-road truck driver you've ever hired, and he will make you proud that you did take a chance on him." She said, "There's no problem here. We're happy with your work already." And at one point, when we got back in the office, she called me in. She said, You're not going to believe this." And then she said, "Well, no, maybe you will because you've told me about this Aaron Daly character. Do you know that Aaron Daly," and a few weeks ago I talked about Russell Cease. Russell Cease was the investigator for the state attorney's office that Aaron Daly worked for in Hernando County. He was the one that hung up on me, laughed at me, said that he wasn't going to talk to Rose or investigate her for her crimes. He didn't want anything to do with it. Well, Aaron Daly and Russell Cease sent a subpoena to Martin's bosses, ordering her to produce his employment records, complete with salary information and W-2 forms, or be held in contempt of court. Now, this was in 2018. They wanted to go all the way back to 2016 when Aaron Daly reneged on the plea agreement. They wanted all of those records. Well, thankfully, again, she already knew about it, and she said no. And she referred them to their corporate attorney. Like I said, Martin went back to driving over the road when he was released from prison, and I rode along, rode shotgun. And about 2 years had gone by when Martin's new boss called me in her office, and she said, "I got an interesting subpoena today from Aaron Corcoran Daly and Russell Cease, the investigator at the state attorney's office. They ordered her to produce Martin's employment records going back 2 years to when he was released from prison, complete with salary information and W-4 forms, or be held in contempt of court." Now, why would you do that unless you're trying to get Martin fired? Thankfully, as I said, I had already told her all that had gone on, and she already knew about it, so that didn't take her by surprise. Well, she ignored it. 4 days after the subpoena was served and ignored, the boss got a call from Aaron Corcoran Daly ordering her and demanding her to provide this information. Well, the boss refused again and forwarded the matter to the corporate attorney. We had several hearings during that 2.5 years of Martin's probation, and each time Aaron Corcoran Daly testified falsely to the court. It was like, can you not tell the truth just once? We go back multiple. Can you not just tell the truth? Do you have to lie at every hearing we go to? During that 2 years, from the time Martin got out of prison in 2016 till all of this nonsense was going on in 2018, we had, of course, were going back to court based on the supposed violation of probation. Every single time we went back to court, Aaron Corcoran Daly testified falsely. I sat there thinking, can't you tell the truth just even once? One time she said the evaluation concluded that Martin suffers from PTSD and other mental health issues. Now, Martin had been forced to get an evaluation, and the evaluator was very clear that now, because of all of this wrongful conviction, he suffered from PTSD. There were no other mental health issues. Brian Savey had to correct her after Martin about lost it there, and he was going, no, no, and Brian's like, just he said, no, he only was diagnosed with PTSD. There are no other mental health issues. Then Aaron Daly said it another one. I never saw the court order. The one that you refused to fix? Yes, you did. We have email evidence and now deposition testimony from Samuel Flynn that proves Miss Daly was the one who altered that plea agreement and then refused to fix it. All while being employed by the Hernando County State Attorney's Office. Despite all these schemes, Martin was able to complete his probation, and on March 7th, 2019, we left the courtroom. As we did, Judge Merritt stopped us. He said, Mr. Peterson, he said, good luck. But before that, he even said on the record that Martin's daughter, he called her the accuser, not the victim. And he admitted that as far as what happened, he had his doubts. Since this time, 2019, we've written to the Hernando County State Attorney's Office asking for Martin to be exonerated. We outlined all of these things that happened and more. There's always more. We provided all these documents to back up our claims. Mr. Juergensmeyer, who you may remember was the supervisor of the state attorney's office at that time, who had hung up on me and laughed at me and refused to not only talk to Rose, but to investigate her for her crime. He basically said no. So we appealed above his head to his boss, the elected state attorney who had taken Brad King's place when he retired. His name is Bill Gladson. Not only did he say no, he said, good morning, Ms. Peterson. Now, this was written just last year. I've read your email, and I know you've raised this issue with me before in previous emails. Yes, I had numerous emails. As you know, this case goes back to 2016. No, Bill. It goes back to 2010 when Martin was falsely accused. He said, and it's clear you brought your concerns up with the previous state attorney. Yes, we did, Brad King. I understand your position, but agreeing to an expungement on a defendant who pled is not something I can, and frankly would, be willing to do. Do you know why Martin pled guilty? Because this one held his freedom for ransom and said you have to plead guilty to felony battery or you're not going home. That is the only reason he pled guilty to that. And Bill Gladson knew it. He said, to be clear, I don't even have the authority to do so. Oh, really? Well, you're in charge of this one. What do you mean you don't have the authority? Of course you have the authority. I wanted to respond to your email so you understand that I've given this matter the attention you requested, but that no further action will be taken. Sincerely, Bill Gladson. So I wrote back and I asked for a copy of Aaron Daly's employment record because I had been told, in fact, what prompted me to write that is I had been told the year before that Aaron Daly was no longer working at the state attorney's office. And I thought that was interesting. Well, why was she not working at the state attorney's office? What happened? Well, as you know, for years, we had been sending their office multiple emails and letters outlining all of the crimes she had committed and demanding that they hold her accountable. What I do have proof of is the fact that Aaron Daly was allowed to resign from the state attorney's office. Now, how do I know that? Because on June 5th, 2023, I got what I had been asking for, which was proof of her employment record. And in the employment record, this was written from a Walter Forgy. He's the chief assistant state attorney under William Gladson, who's the state attorney, Bill Gladson, copied Bill on it. And Walter said, Mr. Forgy said, Bill Gladson and I spoke to Aaron Daly briefly via phone this morning at her request in response to a text message she sent to me on my work cell phone. We also scheduled an in-person meeting with her at the Marion office on Wednesday. This meeting was scheduled after I told her that we would be happy to speak to her by phone or in person about her separation from the agency. Her preference was in person, so I scheduled her for a Wednesday morning. During our conversation today, she asked if, quote, it was a resignation, end quote, and something to the effect of, you guys aren't terminating me, right? I told her that we were treating her separation as a resignation. She was grateful and told me and Bill that, quote, I love you guys. She also said she would return all office property at our meeting on Wednesday. The tone of the conversation was very pleasant. No disbarred, no prosecuted, no charged, just allowed to resign quietly. I also found this in her employment record. It was signed by William Gladson, and it says, I, William M. Gladson, State Attorney in and for the 5th Judicial Circuit of the State of Florida, under and by virtue of the authority vested in me by Article 5 of the Constitution of the State of Florida and the laws of Florida, Florida Statute 27.181, do hereby revoke and cancel the appointment of Aaron C. Daly of Ocala, Marion County, to be Assistant State Attorney in and for the 5th Judicial Circuit, said appointment having been made on the 5th day of January 2021. In testimony whereof I have hereunto set my hand and seal at Ocala, Marion County, blah, 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 signed William Gladson. So she was allowed to resign. So what did Aaron Daly do next? She ran for judge and won. As I said at the beginning of this, she is now Judge Erin Corcoran Daly. Interestingly, the attorney who she went to work for after being allowed to resign from the state attorney's office actually put out a video in support of her opponent who ran against her for the judge position. Sadly, he lost and she won, and here we are. All of this has been sent not only to Brad King, but to Bill Gladson. In fact, this was November of last year. I wanted to have Martin's record expunged. I felt like that's the least that your office can do after all that. You framed him, you schemed, you defrauded the court, you broke every rule of professional conduct, Aaron Daly. You lied, you cheated to win, you knew your witnesses were lying. They were literally making it up as they go, which was why they couldn't get the story straight. And yet you proceeded to trial knowing that Martin was going to die in prison if we didn't find a way out. Thank God I watched this movie. Thank God I started looking at the jury. thank God that he put it on my heart, as we Christians say, to do that. Because if had not, we wouldn't even be able to go back on any fundamental error, because why? You altered the transcript. Did you win because you got more votes? Yes. How did you get twice as many votes as the other guy, who's a godly Christian man who apparently has a very reputable reputation as an assistant state attorney? I don't know. I don't want to know. But you know what? You don't deserve this. I wrote to everyone, including Conrad Juergensmeyer at the state attorney's office and to Bill Gladson, begging them to exonerate Martin. I felt like, again, it was the least you can do, knowing all of this. And then I also found out another thing in her employment record. Bill Gladson was the one who hired her. So he knew all along all the things she had been doing. We have 2 other clients that Martin met while at county. They were all going to the trials about the same time, and Aaron was their prosecutor. Both of those daughters, stepdaughters, have recanted. They've recanted their testimony. They've grown up. They've got married. They have felt horrible about what they did because they knew they lied, just like Martin's accuser daughter. But she hasn't recanted. They went back to court based on juror misconduct, and we have proven that this one did some shady stuff in their cases as well. And in both cases, Judge Merritt said, I believed you then. I don't believe you now. Recant, doesn't matter. Back to prison you go. So last November, I appealed to, again, Conrad Juergensmeyer and Bill Gladson, begging them to exonerate Martin, feeling like it. Now you know all that went on. It's the least that you can do, because you know that what she did. You even fired her over it. Let's be honest here. That you fired her because of all of this. Having said all that, you may wonder why our logo is a picture of a locust. Martin actually designed this for Covert Ops Jury Investigations. The inspiration behind this drawing was the fact that our daughter pointed out every time we were going back to court, from the time Martin was released, all those times we went back to court for the VOP hearings and all these other nonsense and being released from probation, Erin Daly changed her Facebook profile picture to this. My guess is that the grasshoppers, that's me and Martin, I'm supposing, who she's fighting against because we were going back to court for something. After a few days of this, she would take it down and replace it with something. I could be completely off base on that. That may have had nothing to do with us, but it certainly was funny. And people ask her in the feed, why? What is this? And they would say, these are gross. Those are awful. Why are you fighting grasshoppers on the beach? And she has a home on the beach, I will say. And she didn't respond. She never responded to anything anyone said. It was just seemed to us to be just a quiet reminder of what she felt she was doing by fighting us again in court. Don't know. Maybe it had nothing to do with us, but thank you for listening. That was a lot. That was a lot to say. It was a lot to take in. It's a lot to try to process, but it shows you just even a snapshot of the level of corruption that took place by this person and her office in order to convict wrongly an innocent man and send him to prison for life. Until next time, if you know of someone who was convicted by a jury and needs our help, you will find our contact information in the description below. Again, I thank you for watching. And remember, the courtroom may be silent, but we won't be. So speak up, speak out, and always speak the truth.